Welcome, boys and girls. My name is Miss Lydia, and this is your teacher today, Miss Sherry. She will be reading from our chapter book, Rattenborough's Guide to Animals. I'm so excited to read more about birds today. In the last lesson, we learned all about birds' animal group. We learned that all birds are vertebrates, are warm-blooded, have feathers, 2 wings, a beak, and most build nests and lay eggs. Later in the lesson, we'll be making a craft using the information we've learned about birds. Check out this slide with the materials that you'll need. Don't worry, if you don't have these things available at home, we will also give drawing directions.
Hi, boys and girls. In this lesson, you will get to read more about birds along with me. But first, let's review some very important vocabulary we will see during the reading. Check out these slides with us as we review the vocabulary words. Our first word is adaptive. Say the word adaptive with me. Adaptive. Great job. Adaptive means that you can survive in many different habitats. Miss Lydia, do you know a sentence with the word adaptive?
Sure. Birds show that they are adaptive by living all over the world.
Wow, that was great. Boys and girls, can you think of a sentence with the word adaptive? Great. The next word is flocks. Repeat the word flocks with me. Flocks. Wonderful. A group of birds that fly together is a flock. Miss Lydia, can you help us out with another sentence using the word flocks?
Of course. We saw large flocks of seabirds when we went to the beach.
Of course. What a great job. Okay, so class, did you think of a sentence for the word flocks? Awesome. Our next word is penguins. Say penguins with me. Penguins. Fantastic. Penguins are birds that can't fly, but are very good swimmers. Do you have a sentence with the word penguins for us, Miss Lydia?
Yes. When we were at the zoo, the penguins were so silly.
How funny. I think penguins are pretty silly too. Boys and girls, did you think of a sentence with the word penguins? Oh, good. Our next word is feathers. Feathers are what helps birds to fly and maintain their body temperature. Miss Lydia, can you tell us another great sentence with the word feathers?
Here's one. The birds that were a part of the South American exhibit all had brightly colored feathers.
Oh, I bet that was so pretty. Did you think of a sentence with the word feathers? Great job. Our next word is plumage. Plumage is another word for feathers. Miss Lydia, do you have a sentence with the word plumage?
I sure do. I think that flamingos have some of the most beautiful plumage.
I do too, Miss Lydia. Boys and girls, can you think of a sentence with the word plumage? Wonderful. The next word on our vocabulary list is nature. Nature is what we can see in the world around us that is not man-made. Things like rocks and trees. Miss Lydia, can you think of a sentence using the word nature?
Oh, I think I can. On the hike through the woods behind our house, we enjoy seeing nature, including wildflowers and squirrels.
What a great sentence. Thank you, Miss Lydia. All right, boys and girls, we have a few more vocabulary words before we read. Our next word is weather. Say that word with me.
Weather.
Weather describes what our climate is doing on a daily basis. Miss Lydia, can you help us out with another amazing sentence?
I will try. Not sure how amazing it'll be. I hope the bad weather will hold off so we can play our softball game today.
That was great. Can you think of a sentence using the word weather? Good job. The next word on our list is nectar. Nectar is the sweet liquid that's inside flowers. Do you have a sentence for us, Miss Lydia?
Of course. Insects and birds, like hummingbirds, use the nectar they find in flowers for food.
Great job. That was super. Class, can you think of a sentence with the word nectar? Wonderful. Our last word on the vocabulary list is attract. Can you say the word attract?
Attract.
Attract means to cause interest or to come to a place. Miss Lydia, can you help us out with another sentence?
Of course. In science class, we use magnets to attract paper clips and other metal objects.
Great job. Boys and girls, can you think of a sentence using the word attract? That was awesome. Let's review our vocabulary by matching the word to its definition. On the vocabulary chart behind me, I've written each of the vocabulary word definitions. I'm going to ask Miss Lydia to read each of the words and match it to the definition on the chart. Are you ready? Great.
Okay, here we go. The first definition says a group of birds. I know that a group of birds is called a flock. A group of birds are called flocks. Our next definition is sweet liquid inside of flowers. The sweet liquid that's located inside of a flower is called nectar. Our next definition says the ability to survive in many habitats. The ability to survive in many habitats is an animal that is adaptive. Our next one says helps birds fly and maintain body temperature. Well, that would be their feathers. Our next definition says to cause interest or come to a place. That is the word attract. Next, what our climate does daily, and that's the weather. Our next definition is what we can see around us that is not man-made. That would be nature. Our next definition says a type of bird that does not fly. Those are penguins, one of my favorites. Our last definition is another word for feathers, and that's plumage. I hope you learned some new words like I did.
All right, boys and girls, you did such a wonderful job reviewing our vocabulary. I think it's time to read Chapter 7 about birds. If you've downloaded Rattenborough's Guide to Animals from the Core Knowledge website, you can read along with me. I will also have the slides displayed so you can follow along as I read. While we read, be sure to think about the characteristics that make birds unique. Yoo-hoo! Over here, it's Rattenborough. So far, you've learned about the following groups of animals within the animal kingdom: mammals, reptiles, fish, and amphibians. Do you remember all of their different characteristics? Do you remember that we said that fish were the largest group of vertebrates in the animal kingdom? Well, today we are going to talk about the second largest group of vertebrates, birds. Birds belong to a group all their own. Birds, like all living things, are highly adaptive, meaning they can survive in many different habitats. You can find them in deserts and in the coldest places on Earth. Many love forests. There are only a few birds found way out to sea, many miles from land. But if you're out in a boat only a few miles from land, you may see many seabirds, such as seagulls. Looks like it's question time. Miss Lydia, are you ready to help us out with a question?
I think so. What do you got?
All right, so how about we just read that birds make up the second largest group of vertebrates. Do you remember what group was the largest?
I sure do. Fish are the largest group of vertebrates, and there are lots of fish in the sea.
There sure are. Great listening. Let's keep reading. Like mammals, birds are warm-blooded. Many birds migrate when the seasons change. In late fall, they fly in groups called flocks from colder places to warmer places. Then, in the spring, after winter is over, they migrate back to the place where they were in the fall. Birds are the only animal besides some insects and bats that are able to fly like an airplane. All birds have wings, but not all birds are able to fly. Penguins are probably the best known birds that do not fly. Penguins make up for not flying by being great swimmers. Ostriches, the largest of all birds, can't fly either, but they sure can run very fast. They also lay the world's largest eggs. Besides wings, all birds have 2 legs and a mouth without teeth called a beak. A key characteristic of birds is that they all have feathers. Feathers help these warm-blooded animals fly and help them maintain a constant body temperature. Bird feathers come in all kinds of colors and sizes. A bird's feathers are also called plumage. Peacocks have the fanciest plumage of all. They like to show off by fanning their long, colorful feathers. Looks like we have another question, Miss Lydia.
We sure do. What's the question this time?
Well, we just read some very important information about feathers. What are 2 things that a bird's feathers can do?
Well, in the text, the text said that the feathers can help birds to fly, and they also help them to keep a constant body temperature.
Great reading. Boys and girls, did you read that also? I'm learning so much about birds. Let's keep reading. Most birds are nesting animals. Many birds make their own nest, often high up in the trees or in thick bushes. They also use bits and pieces of nature, such as twigs and parts of plants, to create their nest. Other birds build nests in tree holes. Some birds' nests are made of mud. Most birds lay eggs in their nests. Some lay a bunch of eggs and some lay only 1 or 2. The nest needs to be a safe place to protect the little eggs from the weather and other animals that might eat the eggs. Birds sit on their eggs to keep them warm and safe until the eggs hatch. Once they hatch, the baby birds need to eat. Mother and father birds fly out from the nest and find food for their babies. They fly back to the nest and place the food in each baby's beak. Many birds are omnivores. Some birds eat seeds and berries. Some eat insects. Some, like the great blue heron, eat fish. Hawks eat little mammals. Other birds, like tiny hummingbirds, eat nectar from flowers. All birds drink water. Birds are also known for their songs. Their songs are used to attract mates and to claim a place as their own. Sometimes it seems as if they sing because they want to. Maybe they sing just to remind us how beautiful and interesting the animal kingdom is.
We sure have read a lot of great information about birds. I learned so much by reading.
Oh, I did too. In one of the last sections, we read that most birds make nests. Can you think of 2 reasons birds do this?
Well, I think one reason was to protect their eggs from the weather, and the other reason had to do with other animals.
That's right. A bird's nest provides protection for their eggs from the weather and other animals that might want to eat them. Boys and girls, while we were reading, did you think about the characteristics that make birds unique or special? That's wonderful. We're going to use that information during our next activity.
Here's another look at the slide for the list of supplies you will need to complete this activity with us. If you don't have these supplies readily available, you can use drawing paper and crayons to follow along. Great artists even use items that are around them, such as things from the house or the yard. You can also copy the materials you'll need and do it at a later time.
Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to lay out some of these materials so that you can kind of have a visual of what we're going to use. So I've made some eggs that we can write on later. Here's my diamond out of yellow construction paper, and again, you can color color this, or you can use whatever materials you have ready available. So I've got that. Let me see. I did find a couple of googly eyes, so that's great if you have those. And I just cut up some little pieces of yarn that we might use later. And as far as my big shapes, I've got a half circle of brown construction paper. I also have a large blue circle and a smaller blue circle. Again, y'all can use whatever you have readily available at home. If you're drawing along with us, you can draw these shapes too. The other thing I have is I picked up some feathers from the craft store. Now again, leaves could work, and also even if you have something else in your yard like twigs or even some other leaves or some other feathers that you find from birds that have left them in your yard. So you can also use your color pencils or crayons to draw those materials too. So whichever you have at home, that's what you can use to follow along with us. So I'm going to get that out of the way, and we're ready for our first step. Okay, here we go. So on this, we can take one of our blue circles, and I've already done this for you. You can glue that down to the very bottom of your paper. Or again, you can draw if you need to do that. So I just glued that down. So our next step is we're going to glue the small blue circle, and we're going to glue it just right on top. So the next thing that you're going to do is we're going to have some feathers, and you can glue these and tuck them in like so and glue those down. Again, if you're at home drawing along with us, you can draw along and draw some probably prettier feathers than I was able to find. So you can make it any color and make it as pretty as you want to. All right, so that's our feathers. So if you're wanting to see, I did this a little bit earlier just so it would dry and you could see that. So we've got that part. This is the one I'm going to be working from. So the next part, I'm ready for my beak. So you're going to take your yellow diamond, and again, if you're drawing along with us at home, you can do that. But I'm going to put just a little dot of glue. I'm sure that's what your teachers have been telling you. Just a little dot. And I'm going to glue my beak down, just like so. All right, so now I'm ready. If you were able to find some googly eyes, you can use those, or again, you can draw in your own eyes if you were not able to find any. And there's one eye for our bird friend. And here comes another eye for our bird friend. All right, so now we've got our bird pretty much made up, but the nest is looking a little plain. So I'm going to take my brown yarn that I was able to find, and I'm going to glue some little pieces of yarn to our brown construction paper to make it a little three-dimensional. And if you're coloring along with us at home, you can take a crayon or color pencil or marker and make that as elaborate or fancy as you want to. We're just going to kind of make our nest and add a little to our nest. All right, so we've got our bird made. So now we're ready to think about those characteristics we asked you to listen for. So you're going to take your egg shapes, and I've only got 5 of those here. All right, so I've got my 5 egg shapes. Guess what we're going to use those for? That's right, we're going to use our egg shapes for our characteristics that we learned about today. So, Miss Lydia, I'm going to ask you for your help. what were some of the characteristics that you remember from our reading today?
Well, I remember that birds have beaks instead of mouths. They are warm-blooded vertebrates. I also remember that they have 2 wings and 2 feet. They also have feathers. Birds also lay eggs, and most of them make nests.
That was a great answer. Now, I've written those characteristics on our egg shapes. And I went ahead and I wrote them in complete sentences, just, to make it more academic for us. So, you're going to take your egg shapes and you're going to glue them to the back of your nest, just to make sure that we've got all of our characteristics shown. So let's take a second and do that real quick, and we'll be done with our craft. You guys are doing such a great job at home. And I'm just lining these up right behind our mother bird. Okay, boys and girls, last one. All right, and there's our finished bird craft with all of our characteristics that we learned about today. So, how did I do?
That's perfect. What a great way to show the characteristics that we read about today that make birds special and unique.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up our lesson today, boys and girls. I hope you learned as much as we did. See you soon.
Thank you for being such good readers with us while we read our chapter book about birds. We'll be back soon to learn some more about amazing animals. All rights and credits for today's lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these valuable resources. The views and opinions expressed in this lesson are those of Core Knowledge authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Mississippi Department of Education. Hi, friends.